Today we're in Bali, about to fly with Air Asia Indonesia on a 1.5 hour flight to Jakarta. This budget airline, I think at least, is one of the best budget airlines in the world, and really puts some European and American carriers to shame. But at the end of the day, they are still a budget airline, so let's see if you should fly Air Asia over the region's numerous excellent full service carriers like Singapore Airlines, Thai Airways or Cathay Pacific, to name but a few. The airport was quiet and check-in was very efficient, with no queue when arriving 2 hours before departure. And the first bit of praise I have for Air Asia is how great the value is. On Ryanair or Wizz Air, for example, if you want anything above the base fare, then be prepared to pay a lot extra. On this Wizz Air booking, for example, just the seat, carry-on and priority boarding cost £43. Meanwhile, with Air Asia, we paid £11.50 each extra, and for that we got free seats, a carry-on bag, a checked suitcase, a meal, priority boarding, priority luggage, and it was a flexible booking too, so we could have changed flights for free if we wanted. That's incredible value for a budget airline in the grand scheme of things. And looking at the statue, I was like, oh hey, it's the world turtle from the Discworld books. But then, after a quick Google, I found out actually the world turtle is an ancient Hindu concept, which makes sense as the island of Bali is almost entirely Hindu, so there's an interesting tidbit for you. And throughout the airport, you'll also find these interesting bits of architecture, and way in the distance you can see this giant statue, which looks like this up close. Even though we were about to eat on the plane, we decided to get some breakfast at one of the Indonesian restaurants here. But if you don't like Indonesian food, then don't worry, they have WH Smith here too. Now apart from eating, there isn't actually that much to do at this airport, at least not in the domestic terminal. And it gets very busy around the gate areas, so it was a bit hard to find a seat. But the airport itself is pretty efficient and the views out the window are great, with lots of airlines I, as someone from the UK, don't often get to see. Here's our plane for today, a 15-year-old Airbus A320-200. And to give you an idea of how tight AirAsia run their schedules, the previous flight arrived on time at 9:10 am, and our ticket showed the boarding time as also 9:10 am. So obviously that was an unrealistic schedule, but they did still manage to get us boarded almost on time. And also something I've never seen at any airport before, incense being burned at the gate desk. So that's an interesting practice, and I wonder if it ever sets off the fire alarm. Before we step on board, here are the stats and route map for today's flight. Mostly smooth and uneventful, though looking out the window at one point I'm pretty sure I saw a volcano erupting, or at least just smoking a little, so that was cool. And we ended up landing about 10 minutes late. The cabin is the same free layout you'll find on any low-cost plane, so nothing special there. Though I do find their seats to be above average for a budget airline, mainly because these ones are quite old and have very good padding, though legroom is poor. My wife and I were fine as we're short, but the other person on our row must have been about 6 foot tall, and they had their knees jammed up against the seat in front. As you can see, this seat is near the front in row 6 and has a great engine view, and don't forget it was free to select in that very good value bundle. Though on closer inspection, I did notice the whole cabin was just a bit tatty and grubby. A little bit gross honestly, but sadly it's par for the course with budget airlines. And I'm 90% certain they didn't clean the plane at all during the turnaround, as we started boarding as soon as the last passenger from the previous flight stepped off. AirAsia also has a pretty good in-flight food and shopping magazine, and as you'll see later, the food is quite good in my opinion. And something else quite unique, every seat has a card with travel prayers of various religions. The first time I've ever seen this, if I remember correctly. Of course, many Middle Eastern airlines have a Muslim travel prayer, but not for multiple religions like this. And there's some cool AirAsia merch as well. They have a nice airline route map too, though it seems a child went to work on this one, so I couldn't read it.
All the aircraft are located. Lokasi pintu darurat sedang ditunjukkan sekarang. Pintu darurat yang terdekat dengan Anda mungkin berada di belakang Anda. They are being pointed out to you now. Bear in mind that the nearest exits may be behind you. Jika
It was a relatively short taxi to the runway and we rolled past the entire terminal building. And I do like how they've incorporated a bit of local architecture into the design. Adds a bit of extra character to the airport. And oh, look, there's a Scoot Boeing 787-9. Click the link in the description to check out my full review. But without further ado, here's the takeoff. As I mentioned earlier, we got a free meal included, so of course I had to go with the famous Pak Nasa's nasi lemak, the exact same meal I ate when I flew Air Asia Malaysia 2.5 years ago. Looks a bit beige, but if you've never had it before, then I think it's better than 90% of airline economy meals. Very flavourful and a little bit spicy. They don't serve it on a tray though, which meant it slid about the table. Whilst flying, we got a view of Mount Semeru, Sumatra's highest mountain and an active volcano, and I'm pretty sure right here you can see smoke coming out the top. So that's pretty cool, and the only other place I've seen an active volcano was in Iceland. Besides that, there wasn't much to see, and it was a very hazy day with poor visibility, so we'll jump straight into the approach into Jakarta Soekarno-Hatta Airport, which you can see in the distance here.
At Soekarno-Hatta International Airport of Tangerang, Banten. For your safety, please remain seated until the seatbelt sign is switched off.
Lastly, in this video you might have noticed I've been referring to Air Asia Indonesia as if they're slightly different to normal Air Asia. In reality, they're the exact same airline, just that their operations are based out of Indonesia and they're legally registered here. And from a passenger standpoint, the only real difference is that Air Asia Indonesia has a slightly older fleet. Then, despite a jet bridge coming up to the plane, we actually had to hop on a bus to reach the terminal. Not the end of the world, and we did at least get to see a few cool planes on the bus ride, like this vintage Garuda Indonesia Boeing 777. And also, the flight I took the day after this was with Etihad to Abu Dhabi in their business class. A very good flight, and you can find my review in the link in the description below. Terminal 1 of this airport, meanwhile, is just fine. A bit claustrophobic, but efficient enough, and it was maybe 30 minutes from stepping off the plane to collecting our bag and getting a grab to the city centre. So overall, Air Asia Indonesia provide a relatively efficient experience for a great price. And despite the low comfort and grubby plane, I still can't get over the fact that all of the add-ons we got only cost £11.50 more than the base fare. So I'll put Air Asia Indonesia at the same level as regular Air Asia on my airline tier list at a 5 out of 10. Which may not sound that high, but it is the highest score of any budget airline on this list. Anyway, that's it for this video. Next week I'll have a review of the Mandarin Oriental Jakarta, and after that we'll have reviews of Oman Air, Cathay Pacific and more. So like and subscribe to keep up to date with all that. Thanks a lot for watching, and goodbye.